The echo of the atrium had never sounded so cruel. Clara Bennett stood on the steps of the Imperial History Museum, the rain beginning to spot her only good blazer. In her hand, she clutched a plastic badge of visitors pass they had given her instead of her employee ID. She wasn't staff anymore. She wasn't a historian. In the eyes of Dr. Edward Langford, she was just a liability. Just 30 minutes ago, she had been standing in the Jade Wing, surrounded by donors in tuxedos and dresses that cost more than her annual salary. She had tried to speak. She had tried to warn them. Dr. Langford, the inscription on the seal. It's phonetic, not logographic. It's a replica. She remembered the silence, the way the chatter had died down. She remembered the tightening of Dr. Langford's jaw, the way his eyes didn't look at her, but through her as if she were a smudge on a glass of display case. "Miss Bennett," he had said, his voice amplifying the quiet room. "You are a tour guide. Your job is to memorize the script I give you, not to invent fantasies. You are embarrassing yourself, and you are insulting Dr. Shaw's lives work." He didn't debate the facts. He didn't look at the photos she had printed. He simply pointed to the door. "You are done here. Security will escort you out." Now, standing in the London drizzle, Clara looked at the grand columns of the museum. She had given this place 5 years of her life. She had studied for a decade to walk these halls. And in less than 60 seconds, a man who couldn't read ancient script without a translator had erased her. But humiliation is a strange fuel. It doesn't just burn, it clarifies. Clara reached into her pocket and felt the cool, rough surface of the object inside. The museum had rejected her voice, but they couldn't reject the truth. And the truth was sitting in her pocket, waiting to rewrite everything they thought they knew, to understand how it ended. You have to understand how it began. Clara wasn't supposed to be just a tour guide. She had graduated top of her class at Oxford, specializing in the Shang dynasty, a period of history so ancient and obscure it was often glossed over by Western institutions. But when her thesis funding was cut and her academic advisor retired, she found herself outside the closed doors of tenure-track positions. The Imperial History Museum offered a compromise. "Come lead tours," the HR manager had said. "It's a foot in the door. We often promote from within." It was a lie, but a comforting one. For 3 years, Clara walked backwards to the halls, pointing at things she had studied for thousands of hours, reciting watered-down scripts written by interns. And here we see the emperor's vase, dated 1200 BC. She knew it was likely a ritual vessel, not a vase. She knew the translation on the placard was slightly off, but she smiled. She needed the paycheck. Dr. Edward Langford was the director, a man who treated the museum like a bank. Artifacts were assets. History was a product. He was rarely seen in the archives. He was usually seen in the donor lounges, sipping scotch with trustees. His right hand was Dr. Olivia Shaw. Shaw was brilliant, but terrified of being wrong. She had curated the museum's collection for 20 years, and any suggestion that a piece might be misidentified was met with icy hostility. The friction began on a Tuesday. Clara was assigned to preview the new centerpiece of the Jade of the West Exhibit Iona grand opening that had been advertised on buses and billboards all over London. The centerpiece was the Emperor's Seal, a piece of green jade the size of a dinner plate, on loan from a private collector who wished to remain anonymous. Dr. Shaw had written the narrative. It was a lost seal of Emperor Wu Ding, a proof of his conquests in the West. Clara stood before the glass case. The lights were dimmed to protect the stone. She adjusted her glasses and leaned in. The carving was exquisite, but something nagged at her. She pulled out her phone, opening the digital archive of the museum's library. She cross-referenced the style of the carving. It was too clean. The edges were too sharp. Then she saw the inscription. It was a tiny line of text along the rim. Dr. Shaw had translated it as by the right of the sun. Clara's heart skipped a beat. She knew that syntax. It wasn't ancient Chinese. It was a modern attempt at it, a forgery. She didn't want to be right. She wanted the museum to be right. A forgery this big would be a disaster. She typed up a report. She cited 3 comparative studies. She attached photos. She sent it to Dr. Shaw with a polite subject line, potential inconsistency, an Emperor's Seal provenance urgent review. She waited. The next morning, she was called to Dr. Shaw's office. The room smelled of old paper and expensive perfume. Shaw didn't offer Clara a seat. "Miss Bennett," Shaw said, tapping the printed report with a manicured fingernail, "I received your email." "Yes, ma'am. I think the syntax indicated a later period, possibly A." "You think," Shaw cut her off, her voice sharp, "that the lead curator of this institution, missed something that a tour guide spotted during a walkthrough?" Clara swallowed. "I just thought the linguistic data." "You thought wrong," Shaw said. She dropped the report into the trash bin beside her desk. "This piece has been verified by 3 separate experts. It is the crown jewel of our season. Do not email me with amateur theories again. Do your job. Lead the tours. Smile. Point. Do not think." Clara walked out of the office, her face burning. She wasn't just dismissed, she was belittled. If you believe that truth deserves a voice, even when the powerful try to silence it, hit that like button. Let's see Clara through this. But Clara couldn't unsee it. Once you see the crack in the mirror, you can't look at your reflection the same way. Over the next week, Clara worked her shifts, but her mind was in the archives. She knew she couldn't fight Shaw with credentials. Shaw had too many. She had to fight with physical proof. She went home to her small flat in Camden. Her apartment was more library than living space. Boxes of her grandfather's belongings sat in the corner. He had been a merchant in the East Indies in the 1950s, a collector of odds and ends. Clara had always dismissed his collection as junk, broken pottery, dull coins, but the inscription on the emperor's seal had triggered a memory, a shape. She pulled a wooden crate from under her bed. Inside, wrapped in old velvet, was a lump of jade. It wasn't polished. It was ugly, covered in calcified dirt. Her grandfather had called it a rice bowl. Clara took it to her desk. She brushed away the dust. It was a shallow dish, and along the rim was the real syntax of the Shang dynasty. But it wasn't just a bowl. Clara took a measurement of the diameter. She pulled up the schematics of the emperor's seal from the leaked exhibition brochure. She had a theory, a wild one. The seal wasn't a seal. It was a lid, and this bowl was the base. If they fit together, it would prove they were a set. And if the bowl had the correct ancient syntax, and the seal had the fake syntax, it meant the seal was a modern forgery created to fit a real ancient base. She was up until 4:00 a.m. She compared the grain patterns of the jade. It was a match. She had the smoking gun. She had the missing half. The next day, she tried to approach Dr. Langford directly. She bypassed Shaw. She waited in the lobby, holding her grandfather's box. When Langford walked in, surrounded by his assistants, Clara stepped forward. "Dr. Langford." "Sir, my name is Clara Bennett. I have information regarding the Emperor's seal." Langford stopped. He looked at the box, then at her badge. "You're the guide." "Yes, sir, but I have evidence that the centerpiece might be." "Miss Bennett," Langford sighed, checking his watch. "Dr. Shaw has already briefed me on your obsession. We are 3 days from the opening. The press is here. The donors are here. I do not have time for a tour guide playing Indiana Jones. Please, just look at the jade." "It fits." She moved to open the box. Langford grabbed her wrist. Not hard, but firmly. "Stop. You are jeopardizing a multi-million-dollar exhibit. If I see you near the display cases again without supervision, you will be terminated." He walked away. Clara stood there, frozen. They weren't just ignoring the truth. They were actively suppressing it. The day of the VIP preview arrived. The museum was glowing. Champagne glasses clinked. The elite of London society filled the hall. Clara was on shift. She had been moved from the jade wing to the pottery through the ages section in the basement, a punishment detail. But she couldn't stay in the basement. She knew if the museum presented a forgery to the world, and it came out later, the scandal would destroy the institution she loved. She had to try one last time. She waited until the main presentation was about to start. Langford was on a podium, the spotlight on him. Behind him, the Emperor's seal glowed in its glass case. "Ladies and gentlemen," Langford boomed, "history is written by the victors. But tonight, we give voice to the voiceless. Behold, the seal of Emperor Wu Ding." Applause. Clara moved through the crowd. She didn't shout. She didn't cause a scene. She just moved toward the side of the stage where Dr. Shaw was standing. "Dr. Shaw," she whispered urgently, "please, don't do this. I have the matching piece. It's in my bag. If you present this, and it's proven fake later, your career's over." Shaw looked at her. For a second, Clara saw fear in the curator's eyes. Shaw looked at the crowd, then at Langford, then back at Clara. Shaw turned to a security guard nearby. "This woman is harassing me," she said loud enough for the nearest donors to hear. "She's trying to disrupt the ceremony." The room went quiet. Langford stopped speaking. He looked down from the stage. "What is this?" Langford asked, his voice cold. "Miss Bennett," Shaw said smoothly, "has been making absurd claims about the collection. She's clearly unstable. I caught her trying to tamper with the glass earlier." Clara's eyes widened. "That's a lie. I never." "Enough." Langford stepped down from the podium. He walked over to Clara. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. The humiliation was absolute. Every eye was on her. The help causing a scene. "I warned you," Langford said, his voice low and dangerous. "You don't get to ruin this night because you crave attention." He turned to the security guard. "Remove her and strip her credentials. She is fired immediately." "But the artifact," Clara cried out, clutching her bag. "It's fake. Look at the inscription. It's a phonetic translation from the Qing dynasty, not the Shang." Guests laughed nervously. "Is she serious?" Someone whispered. "The tour guide is correcting the director?" "Get her out," Langford spat. Two guards grabbed Clara by the arms. They marched her through the crowd, past the laughing donors, past the sneering Shaw. They threw her out the front doors, into the cold London night. Her bag spilled open. Her grandfather's jade bowl rolled across the wet pavement. A doorman kicked aside. "Trash," he muttered, thinking it was just a rock. Clara picked it up. She wiped the mud off it. Tears streamed down her face. But she wasn't crying because she was sad. She was crying because she was angry. She looked at the museum doors. They thought she was gone. She wasn't. She was just getting started. Clara walked to a coffee shop across the street. She sat by the window, watching the gala continue. She felt small. She felt invisible. Her phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. "Miss Bennett, this is James Thorne, professor of archaeology, Oxford. I saw your paper on Shang Dynasty ceremonial rites 2 years ago. I'm at the gala. I saw what happened." Clara stared at the screen. A witness. Someone who knew her work. She typed back they didn't listen. "They threw me out." "What was the evidence you were holding?" James asked. Clara looked at the bowl on the table. The companion piece. The base. They're displaying the lid as a seal. The lid is a fake. The base is real. A pause. "Then can you prove it?" "I can prove it physically. They fit together like a lock and key. But they won't let me near the case. Meet me at the service entrance in 10 minutes. I'm bringing the board of trustees. If you're right, Langford is finished. If you're wrong, I can't help you." Clara stood up. She put the bowl back in her bag. Her hands were shaking, but her mind was clear. This wasn't about her job anymore. This was about history. This was about truth. Back inside the museum, Langford was basking in the applause. The auction for the viewing rights of the seal was about to begin. Suddenly, the double doors at the back of the hall swung open. Clara walked in. She wasn't escorted by guards this time. She was flanked by Professor James Thorne, and behind them, 3 members of the museum board people who outranked even Langford. The room fell silent again. But this time, the silence was different. It wasn't the silence of mockery. It was the silence of anticipation. Langford's face turned red. "What is the meaning of this?" "Security." "Stand down," one of the board members, an older woman named Mrs. Hastings, commanded. "Let her speak." Langford looked panicked. "Mrs. Hastings, this woman is a disgruntled former employee. She was fired for incompetence. She was fired for telling the truth." James Thorne said, stepping forward, "And I suggest you listen, Edward, before you humiliate yourself further." Clara walked toward the glass case. The crowd stepped back. Dr. Shaw looked like she had seen a ghost. Clara stood in front of the Emperor's seal. She didn't ask for permission. She took the key from the security guard who looked at the board members and obeyed their nod. She opened the case. "What are you doing?" Shaw shrieked. "You can't touch that." "Watch me," Clara said. She reached into her bag and pulled out the dirty, ugly jade bowl. Gasps rippled through the room. "This," Clara announced, her voice trembling only slightly, "is not a fake. It is the ceremonial base, and the object you have on display." She lifted the seal from its velvet pedestal. It was heavy. "It's not a seal, it is a lid," Clara turned to the crowd. The inscription on the seal was carved recently, using incorrect grammar, to make it look like a standalone declaration, but the original piece was a vessel. She aligned the bowl on the table. She took the heavy jade lid to seal and lowered it. It clicked. A perfect, airtight seal. The patterns on the rim matched exactly. The grain of the stone flowed seamlessly from the lid to the base. It was undeniable. It was geometry. It was physics. "The lid is a forgery added to a real base to create a narrative," Clara said. Turning to Langford, "You bought a fake." The room erupted in whispers. The cameras flashed. The donors looked at Langford with disgust. This is preposterous." Langford stammered. "That rock she brought could be anything. It's a trick." Professor Thorne stepped up. He pulled out a jeweler's loop. He examined the joint. "The patina is continuous," Thorne announced, his voice booming. "The oxidation layers match, and Miss Bennett is correct. The lid has been recut. This is a major forgery." Dart Shaw slumped into a chair, burying her face in her hands. Her career was over. Langford looked around the room, searching for an ally, finding none. But he looked at the artifact, then at Clara. "That I relied on the experts," he muttered. "I tried to tell you." Clara said softly, "I tried to tell you 4 days ago." She turned to Mrs. Hastings. "The exhibition needs to be renamed, and the provenance needs to be corrected. This isn't the seal of an emperor. It's a ritual vessel for grain. It tells a story of harvest, not war. It's actually a much more beautiful point." 30 minutes later, the police had arrived to question the anonymous lender who had conveniently disappeared. Langford had been asked to resign by the board, effective immediately. That Clara stood in the center of the hall. She was no longer holding a plastic visitor's pass. She was holding the real artifact. Mrs. Hastings approached her. "Miss Bennett, we owe you a profound apology. The museum treated you with disgraceful arrogance. I just wanted the truth to be on the placard." Clara said, smiling tiredly, "We need someone to rewrite that placard." Hastings said, and the rest of the exhibit, "We need a head curator who actually cares about the history, not the politics." That Shaw has been suspended. Clara looked at the empty podium where Langford had stood. She looked at the jade vessel. Finally reunited, whole again, "It'll need a better salary than a tour guide," Clara said. Hastings smiled. "I think that could be arranged." James Thorne walked over, handing her a glass of champagne. "You know, that was the most exciting museum gala I've ever been to. I prefer the archives." Clara admitted, "A less drama." "I doubt that." James laughed. "So, head curator Bennett, when do we start on the research paper?" "Tomorrow," Clara said, looking at the display case. "Tonight, I just want to look at it. The real thing." The tour guide didn't just lose her job that night. She found her voice, and in doing so, she saved the very institution that tried to silence her. If this story taught you, that status doesn't equal truth, and that expertise can come from anywhere, please hit that like button and subscribe. We tell these stories so the underestimated can finally be heard. What would you have done in Clara's shoes? Let me know in the comments.